Take a moment and think about this. In the United States, we spend more money on health and fitness than any country in the world. Gym memberships, protein powders, smartwatches that track every step, apps that promise to keep our brains sharp and our bodies young. And yet, after the age of 50, something still quietly starts to slip. The knees don't feel the same in the morning. Balance feels less reliable. Names take longer to come back. And that confident, steady feeling in your body slowly fades. Now compare that to Japan. Japan has more people living past 100 years old per capita than anywhere else on Earth. Not just living longer, but living independently. Walking to the store, gardening, riding bicycles. Holding conversations with clarity and focus well into their 90s. So here's the uncomfortable question most Americans never ask. If we're doing everything right, why are we aging so poorly? It's tempting to assume the answer is genetics, or diet, or access to healthcare. But when American researchers studied Japan's oldest adults, people in their 90s and even 100s, who were still mobile, mentally sharp, and self-reliant, they uncovered something far more surprising. The secret wasn't fancy food, it wasn't intense exercise, and it definitely wasn't expensive supplements. Instead, it came down to a handful of small, daily movements. Movements so simple that Western medicine once dismissed them as meaningless, until advanced brain scans, balance tests, and joint imaging proved otherwise. One of these movements, done for just 2 minutes a day, was associated with a dramatic increase in lifespan. So if you're over 65, if stiffness, slower reflexes, or mental fog have started to creep in, and if you quietly worry about losing your independence someday, stay with me. What you're about to hear may completely change how you think about aging. As we move past our mid-60s, aging doesn't usually arrive all at once. It shows up quietly, in ways that are easy to dismiss. You wake up feeling stiff, but you assume it's just normal aging. You grab the handrail on the stairs more often, but you tell yourself you're being careful. You lose confidence getting up from the floor, so you avoid it altogether. None of these moments feel serious on their own, but together they signal something important. What's actually declining for most older adults isn't strength or willpower. It's movement quality, the ability of the body and brain to communicate smoothly, efficiently, and confidently. In America, we're taught to think of health in big actions. Go to the gym, do a workout, push harder. But after 65, this approach often backfires. High-intensity routines can aggravate joints. Long periods of sitting weaken balance systems, and many people slowly stop moving in ways that feel unfamiliar or uncomfortable, especially movements close to the ground, slow movements, or movements that challenge balance. The result? Joints lose lubrication, muscles stop firing together, balance reflexes weaken, the brain receives fewer sensory signals from the body, and over time this leads to falls, chronic pain, cognitive decline, and loss of independence. Here's what makes this especially dangerous. Most people don't notice the decline until it's advanced. By the time someone struggles to stand on one leg, by the time getting off the floor feels impossible, by the time fear of falling limits daily life, the body has already adapted to less movement. Not because it's incapable, but because it hasn't been reminded how. This is where Japan offers a powerful contrast. In Japanese culture, older adults continue to perform small, natural movements every day, not as exercise, but as part of life. Movements that keep joints nourished, balance systems alert, and the brain fully engaged with the body. These habits don't look impressive. They don't raise heart rates or burn calories. That's why many Western doctors once ignored them. But modern research now shows these subtle movements play a critical role in preserving mobility, mental clarity, and independence well into old age. And the people who benefit most? Those over 65. Those who think it's too late. Those who don't want to push harder. They just want to move smarter. To understand why these simple Japanese movements work so well, we need to look at how the aging body actually declines. Not in theory, but in everyday life. Most people assume aging is about muscle loss or joint wear and tear. That's only part of the story. What really accelerates decline after 65 is something far more subtle. The breakdown of communication between the body and the brain. Every time you move, tiny sensors in your feet, joints, muscles, and inner ear send information to the brain. This feedback tells you where your body is in space, how stable you are, and how much force to use. When those signals weaken, the brain starts operating with less information. Movements become hesitant. Balance reactions slow down. Confidence disappears. This is why someone can still be strong on paper, yet feel unsteady walking across a parking lot. Early warning signs versus advanced decline. In the early stages, the signs are easy to overlook. Stiffness that takes longer to ease in the morning, needing momentum to stand up from a chair, feeling off balance when turning quickly, avoiding the floor altogether, trouble concentrating when tired. At this point, most people don't seek help because nothing feels wrong enough. But if these signals are ignored, the body adapts by moving less. And when movement decreases, the decline accelerates. Advanced symptoms often include frequent joint pain, fear of falling, reduced walking speed, poor posture, memory lapses and slower reaction time, loss of independence in daily tasks. What's striking is that none of this happens because the body is broken. It happens because it's understimulated in the wrong ways. Why Western fitness often misses the mark. In the US, physical activity is often framed as punishment or performance. We chase calories, heart rate zones, or step counts. For younger bodies, that can work. But for older adults, this approach can miss what matters most. Fast, repetitive movements don't challenge balance systems. Machines isolate muscles but ignore coordination. Long periods of sitting, even between workouts, shut down joint lubrication and nerve signaling. Many older Americans also stop moving slowly or close to the ground because it feels uncomfortable or unsafe. Ironically, avoiding these movements is exactly what makes them unsafe later. The Japanese difference: movement as daily maintenance. In Japan, many elders never stop doing the movements Westerners abandoned decades earlier. They walk slowly and deliberately, allowing the feet to fully connect with the ground. This reactivates balance pathways that tend to weaken with age. They perform gentle full-body movements every morning, keeping joints bathed in synovial fluid, the body's natural lubricant, instead of letting stiffness build overnight. They squat, sit and rise from the floor regularly, preserving hip, knee and ankle mobility while maintaining core strength and coordination. They practice stillness-based balance, forcing the brain to make constant micro-adjustments, essentially exercising the nervous system. And they use simple resistance, like twisting a towel, to activate deep stabilizing muscles that modern workouts often ignore. None of these movements exhaust the body. Instead, they remind the body how to function. Before versus after. What changes when these movements return? Before adopting these habits, many older adults describe life like this. Walking feels cautious. Uneven ground feels threatening. Getting up requires planning. Stiffness dominates mornings. Mental clarity fades under fatigue. After several weeks of consistent practice, common changes include improved confidence while walking, less joint stiffness throughout the day, better posture and breathing, quicker balance reactions, clearer thinking and calmer mood. These improvements don't come from building bigger muscles. They come from restoring movement intelligence. Common misconceptions that hold people back. One of the biggest myths about aging is that decline is inevitable. Another is that if you didn't stay active earlier in life, it's too late now. Neither is true. The nervous system remains adaptable well into old age. In fact, gentle, precise movements are often more effective than intense exercise because they directly stimulate the brain-body connection. Another misconception is that no pain means no progress. For older adults, pain is usually a warning sign, not a badge of honor. The Japanese approach prioritizes comfort, control, and consistency, not strain. A real-life pattern seen again and again. Consider two people in their early 70s. One avoids the floor, walks quickly but stiffly, and exercises occasionally at the gym. The other moves slowly, squats regularly, balances daily, and performs gentle movements every morning. 10 years later, the difference is often dramatic. One struggles with mobility, depends on support, and limits daily activities. The other remains independent, alert, and engaged with life. Not because one worked harder, but because one moved smarter. Why this matters so much after 65. After retirement, life naturally becomes more sedentary. Less commuting, more sitting, fewer natural movement challenges. Without intentional daily movement, the body adapts downward. The Japanese approach counters this by embedding movement into life itself, not as exercise, but as maintenance. And that's the key lesson. Aging well isn't about fighting your body. It's about giving it the signals it needs to stay responsive. The good news? You don't need to adopt all of these habits at once. Even one or two practiced consistently can begin reversing years of quiet decline. The most encouraging part of everything you've learned so far is this: preventing decline after 65 doesn't require extreme changes. It requires small, repeatable habits that work with your body instead of against it. Daily movement habits that matter most. First, prioritize daily movement over intense exercise. Short, gentle movements done every day are far more effective than long workouts done occasionally. Walking slowly and mindfully, practicing balance on one leg, or performing simple twisting movements keeps your nervous system engaged and your joints nourished. Think of these movements as brushing your teeth for your body. Small actions, repeated consistently, prevent bigger problems later. Aim for 10-15 minutes a day, broken into small pieces if needed. Morning is ideal, when the body is naturally primed to move, but any time is better than none. Nutrition, support, don't overcomplicate. For most older adults, nutrition should focus on supporting movement and recovery, not chasing trends. Adequate protein to preserve muscle, plenty of fruits and vegetables for joint and brain health, healthy fats for inflammation control, proper hydration to keep tissues flexible. There's no need for expensive supplements unless recommended by a doctor. Often, simple, balanced meals do more than anything in a bottle. Sleep and recovery. Sleep becomes more important, not less, with age. Quality sleep allows the brain to process movement signals and the body to repair tissues. If stiffness is worse in the morning, gentle movement upon waking can help rehydrate joints and restore circulation. Avoid long periods of sitting during the day, which undo much of the benefit of movement. When to see a doctor. If you experience persistent pain, sudden balance loss, dizziness, or recent falls, it's important to consult a healthcare professional. These movements are designed to support health, not replace medical care. A physical therapist can also help adapt movements safely if you have arthritis, joint replacements, or previous injuries. The preventive mindset. The biggest shift is mental. Aging well isn't about pushing harder or proving toughness. It's about maintaining capability, the ability to move, think, and live independently. The earlier you start, the easier it becomes. But even if you're well into your 70s or 80s, your body still responds to the right signals. Small movements, daily consistency, respect for your limits. That combination is what keeps people moving confidently through later life. If there's one message to take away from this, it's this: aging isn't something that suddenly happens to you. It's something that slowly responds to how you move every single day. The Japanese elders we've talked about aren't trying to live forever. They're trying to live well, with clear minds, steady balance, and the freedom to take care of themselves for as long as possible. And they achieve that not through intensity, but through intention. You don't need to change everything at once. You don't need a gym membership, special equipment, or complicated routines. You only need to start where you are. Choose one movement. Give it a minute or two a day. Let your body relearn what it already knows. Over time, those small choices add up to stronger balance, clearer thinking, and greater confidence in daily life. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which part of today's video felt most relevant to you? Have you noticed changes in your balance, stiffness, or energy as you've gotten older? Or are you planning to try one of these movements starting tomorrow? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every message, and your experience may help someone else who's quietly facing the same concerns. If you found this helpful, consider sharing it with a friend or family member. Aging well is easier when we support each other. Thank you for spending this time with me.